Welcome to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed.
Where wellness gets a fun twist. I'm Gordy Jenkins, a natural foods entrepreneur, and with me is Dr. Zed DeBout, our resident trained Stanford MD. We are former college swim teammates turned best friends, and now your guide to this crazy world of health trends and fitness hacks with a focus on getting the science right. Get ready for a wild ride. This is Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. And swing your partner around and round. It's time for a Rhabdomyolysis. That's right. Today, Zed and I are going through Rhabdomyolysis. What is it? How does it happen? And why did it recently target our nation's most vulnerable population? Division III lacrosse players. Then, it's astonishing human feats about the biggest badass of the ancient fitness world, Milo of Croton. Zed, you are not going to believe what kills this guy before we wrap up, as always, with our fast fire questions. But before we start singing that rab do re mi fa sol la ti do ti la sol fa mi rab do, what have you learned while going through health this week?
Me. All right, so I've got a little study for you, Gordy. So this is published on April 10th, and it's new evidence shows blood or plasma donations can reduce the PFAS in our bodies. So a little background: PFAS, the forever chemicals we all know and love, per and polyfluorinated alkyl substances, and those are those synthetic chemicals found in everything from your household firefighting foams.
So it's PFAS, right? Because when you said PFAS, I think of like the equivalent of peach fuzz, but for a P.
Both equally bad. One a little more permanent. But yeah, so I guess peach fuzz could stick around for a while. Hopefully not forever.
Yes.
Yeah, so your firefighting foams, your nonstick pans, your carpets, your clothes, they're all around. And also your stain or water resistant materials. So
Are people getting in contact with firefighting foams a lot? Firefighters.
And people on fire. And I bet there's a TikTok trend of like pranking your buddy with firefighting.
I'm like, don't put me out. Those have PFAs in them. Don't do it. Don't do it. Let me burn.
Just the Zoolander scene of the gas, but with the gasoline, but with PFAS or with the firefighting foam. That could be fun.
I like that. All right, so wait, what does it say? So there's some good news surrounding the PFAS.
Yeah, PFAS ruining everything. But yeah, so new research finding. So there's this randomized clinical trial published in JAMA Network Open that found actually regular blood or plasma donations can reduce those blood PFAS levels. So we're basically back to the age-old, timeless medical practice of leeches, cleansing the blood through siphoning it away.
So are we passing the buck then? Like if we're given plasma donations and we're just like emptying out our PFAS, presumably if that plasma gets used by someone, are we just like passing the PFAS on?
Yeah, so that's something that jumped out to me as well, but I didn't really dig deeper into there if there's a process during plasma or blood donation where they're doing some sort of hyperfiltration or getting rid of those before they pass the buck. But yeah, I was thinking, this, if not, it's definitely bioaccumulating in the next person. Or, imagine if you're Dracula and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling so well. Do not tell me there's too much PFAS in this blood. But yeah, I guess vampires aren't really getting blood donations. I don't know how.
That's like
I guess
a food
they're
bank.
just
That'd be the
drinking
equivalent of a food bank for them.
Yeah. So the vampires are safe, probably.
Yeah, you don't really think about like the modern issues that vampires face in terms of all the plastic they're ingesting.
Yeah. Or maybe they cover this all in the Twilight series. I bet that's probably a big plot point is the PFAS.
I think it was. I think the PFAS were huge.
Forever. And with vampires, they really are forever. Yeah, so all right. Anyways.
That's interesting though, Zed. It reminds me of, I remember reading like a while back about this like iron hypothesis that was something, vaguely similar, which was that lower iron levels are associated with a reduced risk of heart disease and longer life. And this study in Finland, which was conducted over 9 years, found that men who donated blood regularly actually had an 88% reduction in heart attacks compared to the non-donors. So,
wow.
If you wanted another reason to give blood and plasma.
Me just bragging and socially like, oh yeah, I actually donate a lot of blood, kind of a selfless guy. But,
yeah, I'm kind of just trying to offload all the plastic and all the PFAs in me. Yeah.
But no, so they found similarly to the iron study that plasma donations every 6 weeks resulted in a 30% decrease in that, not peach fuzz, but P fuzz levels over 12 months. They still had all their peach fuzz, but it was more effective than whole blood donation every 12 weeks. So if you're trying to offload, looks like if you're trying to offload those P fuzz, hit the plasma rather than the whole blood, but both could be good. And so I thought this was interesting in terms of mechanism. So unlike a lot of these other potential toxins, et cetera, the PFAS are actually bound to proteins in the serum. So in your blood serum, not fats. So that is what makes sort of the blood and plasma donations effective in reducing those levels.
That's interesting. All right. I like that. I like hearing some positivity out of the top study.
Yeah. So I guess in a pinch, if you don't have a plasma donation spot near you, actually, no, I'm not gonna invite leeches. I'll say leeches.
Leeches. Go find a leech and hope for the best.
Yeah. So that's what I had on PFAS. But yeah, curious, Gordy, what is our main subject today? Our subjective, if you will.
Our subjective and our subject of the day is rhabdomyolysis. If you were paying attention 3 minutes ago. So I've received a ton of texts, DMs about this, Zed, because the story I have for you this fine day takes place at the U. And no, not the University of Miami. I am talking about the powerhouse just outside of Boston. That is Tufts University, the place where Zed and I met on the swim team. But we're not worrying about those swimmers today, Zed. No. We delve into a concerning incident involving the Tufts University men's lacrosse team and our subject today, a medical condition known as rhabdomyolysis, commonly known as rhabdo. That's right. This is the macro about the Laxbro rhabdo. Got to give the people what they asked for. So,
hey,
rhabdo. This story has been covered in the New York Times, CNN, NPR, People Magazine. I know you're a big reader of that.
Well, Tufts lacrosse players, they're just like us. We do a Navy SEAL workout.
According to the Tufts Daily, though, a workout on September 16th led by a Tufts alum and recent Navy SEAL training graduate involved about 50 team members, out of which 12 were diagnosed with rhabdo afterwards. And Zed, I know you'll get more into this, but just so people get the gist of what's taken down on the Laxbros, this condition, which can result in permanent disability or even death, occurs when the muscle tissue breaks down, releasing myoglobin into the bloodstream, which can severely damage the kidneys if not treated properly and promptly. Symptoms include muscle weakness, soreness, discolored dark urine, and fever. And the treatment also often involves IV fluids to support kidney function. So Dr. Shruti Gupta, Rudy Tooty Fresh and Shruti, director. I'm sorry, she's so much smarter than me. Director of onconephrology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, explains that his hospitalized cases most likely involve high levels of creatine kinase, an enzyme that signifies intense muscle damage. And due to the lengthy hospitalizations of the players, Dr. Gupta speculated that there could be some serious organ damage, pointing out that it's unusual for young, healthy, and physically fit individuals to be hospitalized extensively for this condition. Unfortunately, Zed, the workout's content has not been disclosed, but Gupta suggests that short burst interval training or CrossFit type workouts can lead to rhabdo sometimes, which online doing my research for this, the CrossFit community did not like that, because I know they always probably hear that and they're always like, come on, just let us work out. Well, it was actually a mixed response. Some of the CrossFit people were like, oh man, I can't wait. I hope I go into my next workout. It just says Tufts on the whiteboard.
Give me that rhabdo workout.
Yeah, I'm looking to go to the hospital for 6 days. And then the rest of them were like, come on, just like leave us out of it. Like you could do it doing anything if you overexert yourself, if you're not in shape or whatever. But actually the Navy SEAL opinions were the funniest. They were just like, how soft are these people? Like there's like, this isn't like, what are you talking about? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? But so while overexertion is the presumed cause in this case, it is not even the most common trigger. Typically, rhabdo occurs after trauma from crushing, excessive heat exposure, certain medications, and due to underlying genetic conditions. So lots of people online were saying, oh, maybe the guys were hungover or something, just speculating that it's how odd it is to have so many people in a 45-minute workout become afflicted by it. But Zed, it's a lot of speculation. The rumors are flying. I've heard rumors, just because I cannot confirm or deny, but I just want to irresponsibly plant this seed in your head. But I heard our old pool may have been involved in the workout. And I've read, old Hamilton pool, the oldest pool in the world. I've read similar Navy SEAL inspired like lacrosse workouts. Like, you can like rent a Navy SEAL and they come and they yell at you and go, this, if you really want to be a man, this is what you do, laxers. And they go and they just kind of like work you until you throw up, and they yell at you and make you tread water in the pool and stuff like that. Just to, really break you down in an enjoyable way, I guess.
Why is there so much Navy SEAL like water training overlap with lacrosse, which is a land sport?
It is a land sport. Ugh, that's such a good point. Maybe back in the day when it was like, like in a Native American indigenous people sport and played over, there's used to be like giant fields. It used to be like mile long fields or something. So maybe there could be some water in there, but that is absolutely not the case in this thing. So I'm sorry for that aside, Zed. But yeah, so in response, Tufts University has started an independent investigation led by sports medicine consultant D. Rudd Walters, 11. No, just kidding. The second. Those are Roman numerals. And legal expert Randy Alement to thoroughly examine what happened before, during, and after the workout. So Walters is known for his work with the NFL and MLB and gained national attention for his investigation to a tragic heat stroke case at the University of Maryland. So, this case has brought attention to the potential risks associated with intense physical training, especially when not properly monitored. However, Dr. Gupta reassures us that death or disability from rhabdo is highly unlikely, particularly in young, healthy people. She adds the prognosis is very good in the sense that people do tend to have a full recovery even if they have a kidney injury requiring dialysis. Most people do recover back to their previous baseline kidney function, so that's good news for those guys. The Tufts community, Zed, me and you, while relieved that all affected players have been discharged from the hospital, we remain eager for answers and clarity on how such an incident could occur. And as the investigation unfolds, it serves as a critical reminder of the importance of safe training practices and the need for awareness of the potential dangers of extreme physical exertion, because it's got to be a little embarrassing for them right now. We will definitely update you, listener, as we continue to follow this story and explore the broader implications of rhabdomyolysis in an athletic setting. The lacrosse kids were way cooler than the swim kids back in the day, so it feels great to be sitting here today. Got you guys.
Yeah, lax bro, more like relax too much, bro.
Yeah,
and then
not.
Yeah, well, I guess the Navy SEALs really can turn anything into a weapon, even training. So maybe this is kind of more
it's sabotage,
nefarious.
Yeah.
Sabotage.
He's like, I'm going back, and I'm going to show that lacrosse team. I'm going to get them back.
Yeah, Osama just like turning over in his watery grave, just at peace. Like, oh, thank God, they just blew me away. It didn't make me do a workout first.
I actually think what happened was the Navy SEALs broke into Osama's room and they hit him with a lacrosse ball in the face. But Zed, that is our subjective. Now we need the objective. Will you objectify us, Captain?
Just frantically thinking through how much of that we're going to have to cut, but it's probably fine.
That's been a while.
Yeah.
He's not like an endearing character in history.
The two evils, Laxbros and Osama. All right, no. So, all right, getting into the objective. So we're talking about rhabdo. So even though we already have a very compelling framework for how to think of rhabdo, just going to try and tell a little story here. Picture this: you are a person that has never worked out before, but you decide you're going to run this ultra marathon. So you're running this 100 miles or however long an ultra marathon is. How would you know? You've never exercised before. And then in the middle of the route, you get bit by this snake and you just go along because I think that's bound to happen. at some point during a ultra marathon. And then you're hot, of course, at the end, and you try to cool off in the ocean. But there's this a large seal migration, a Navy SEAL, if you will, and you get they beach themselves and they kind of crush you against the beach, and then everything hurts, and then all of a sudden you realize you haven't peed in a while, and then you go to pee, but there's no TP, but you have tea-colored pee. What the heck is going on? So that incredibly realistic and relatable story, I think, just paints a little picture of the onset and symptoms of rhabdomyolysis.
It helps. It really does. And it lets you, if you're ever in that exact situation, it gives you a little bit of comfort knowing that you've experienced or seen this before. So that's good.
Exactly. You just ticking off the things. Marathons.
You're getting crushed by a seal. Piece red. Yep. Trifecta.
So often abbreviated as rhabdo, which we'll be doing frequently in this episode. It's basically that breakdown of your striated muscle fibers. So to quote from Rhabdomyolysis, an overview for clinicians. So this is for clinicians, but I guess it's also for our listeners now. But this syndrome is characterized by muscle breakdown and necrosis, resulting in the leakage of the intracellular muscle constituents into the circulation and extracellular fluid. So leakage, is it ever good?
No, it doesn't sound good.
I'm trying to think, is leakage ever good? I guess maybe if too much pressure builds up, you'd want some leakage. But in general, I feel like if you got the leakage, it's gonna get freakage. Is a way to. but no. So to break that down, basically, your muscles are bursting, and the stuff that's in your muscles gets out to the rest of your body, and it turns out that it should have stayed in your muscles, because when it gets to other places, it is not good. So this can lead to kidney damage as the kidneys work to filter out all these substances, and then they get obstructed and very hurted. And that is also
is that from the Rhabdomyolysis, an overview for clinicians journal of crit care?
It is, and they actually did it as a soundbite. They said, and they get very hurted. It was an audio episode.
Said, I love your baby voice.
But to get into causes, so we covered some of them. So trauma or injury, so severe physical trauma, such as from accidents or crush injuries, or intense exercise, so your extreme physical exertion, especially in untrained individuals. So it's also especially likely to occur when strenuous exercise is performed under conditions of high temperature and humidity. So potentially Boston in the summertime could match those conditions.
Yeah, especially a bunch of kids who've been hanging out of the country club all summer. He's like a Navy SEAL. He's like, "What? You guys make a podcast?
What's the worst a Navy SEAL is going to do to us?" Right. So you can also get it from infections. So severe infections can trigger that muscle breakdown. There's a host of genetic and metabolic disorders that can trigger these or predispose individuals to rhabdo. And then some additional interesting causes. There's snake venom. So remember that snake that bit you during that marathon? Lightning. Yeah. If you get struck by lightning, may not be your first worry, but your second worry should definitely be rhabdo.
You just get hit by lightning. I'm like, no! I said, look at my pee. Did I pee myself? What color was it?
Oh, I can't pee. Gordy, you have to pee. I need to see if your pee is tea.
I'm still on fire. Get that foam out of here. Get that firefighter's foam out of here.
No. Don't touch me. All right. And then, interestingly, both hypo and hyperthermia, kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Or a what's that tale where the girl is trying to find the perfect porridge?
Goldilocks.
There it is. Goldilocks and the hypo. All right, we'll cut that.
No, we will not.
And then, so basically, that's all to say that muscle injury, regardless of how it happens, whether it's lightning, snake venom, getting hit by a seal, that results in this cascade of events that results in this then leakage of the constituents of your muscle. So you'll get these extracellular calcium ions, which flood into the muscle intracellular space. And then it's actually this excess calcium that causes all the pathologic interactions between your muscle fibers, the constituents of your muscle fibers, and that results in the muscle destruction and the actual muscle fiber necrosis or death. And basically, it kind of, the muscle implodes, explodes, however you want to think about it, probably less energetically, and then all that stuff leaks out. So an analogy, This is courtesy, again, of the PFAS fire extinguishers. So think about a fire. It doesn't really matter how the fire started. Well, it does for a lot of legal and blame reasons.
So if it's like an electrical fire, like grease fire, you might want to have a different approach. Anyway, but continue. I get what you're saying.
In the middle of it, no one really cares how it started.
That's
but once it's going, the muscle is being destroyed, the house, the whatever is being destroyed, the ash chokes up everything. The ash is supposed to stay in the objects, but once it's on fire, the ash gets out of the objects and then it chokes up everything, it clogs up everything, and you need to pour a bunch of water on it, unless it's a grease fire, to put it out, to like wash it all out. So it's not like in Pompeii, they're like, hey, free ash. No, they're like, hey, we got to get the stuff out of here.
Free ash. So
Wow.
ash. So things are like the material world is just like full of pinatas that are essentially just
ash
just like
pinatas.
objects full of ash, and then when heat activated, the ash just flows right out of it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that.
Yeah, everything is pre-ash.
Okay, good.
All right, so that's how rhabdomyolysis works. Symptoms, Gordy covered some of them with our Laxbros. So you get the muscle pain. And interestingly, it's been shown to occur slightly more often in the shoulders, thighs, calves, or lower back. So if you have time to kind of think and register that could sort of point you in the right direction. Then weakness, generalized muscle weakness, swelling. So swelling of the affected muscles, which shouldn't be too surprising because of the processes going on. And so kind of you get that nice rhabdo swollen muscle look. Hey, I kind of like this rhabdo look.
Yeah. It's red. Purple.
And then,
nice.
And then everywhere you look, so you see the dark urine, but everyone always qualifies it or describes it as tea-colored urine. And that's due to the myoglobinuria. So that myoglobin, the presence of it in your urine. And just to briefly dig in here, myoglobin is the protein, so sort of the corollary of hemoglobin, which you may be familiar with, but is found specifically in muscle tissues, and it plays a crucial role, like hemoglobin, in storing and transporting oxygen within your muscles. So very similar to hemoglobin, but it actually binds oxygen a little bit more tightly. And not to get too in the weeds here, but this helps, of course, your muscles sustain metabolism and energy production. But in the context of our good buddy rhabdo, it's released into the bloodstream when the muscle breaks down. So kind of like that pre-ash, the ash gets out, and it can lead to kidney damage, basically clogs up the tubules of the kidney. And then you are really in trouble because the kidneys are very important.
That makes sense. All right. I appreciate that. That's a good way to visualize it. Actually, I'm like a little surprised. I'm sorry. I was like, oh yeah, but pinata, it worked.
so last thing with the myoglobin here. So once the plasma levels reach 100 milligrams per deciliter of that myoglobin, that basically means you have a high enough concentration for the urine for the myoglobin to be visible in the urine. So you see that sort of tea-colored urine, and that actually corresponds with the destruction of about 200 grams of muscle. So so you've lost a fifth of a kilogram of muscle when you can start to see the T in your pee.
So a fifth of a kilogram of muscle. Wow.
Which we're all familiar with.
Just a nice little on-hand little unit of measure for everyone. For all you Americans out there, that's a fifth of a kilogram of muscle fiber. Can you imagine? Just imagine like if you're holding a fifth of a kilogram of muscle fiber in your hand.
Yep.
Everyone knows what that looks like. Or everyone knows what like a tenth looks like. So imagine two of those.
2 tenths.
Yeah.
But yeah, so diagnosis, we talked about, so there's a urine test. So beyond just looking, you can actually do the little pee strip and that'll detect the myoglobin in the urine. But the gold standard, to get back to your creatine kinase, Gordy, from Shruti Gupta. So elevated levels of creatine kinase, that's the muscle enzyme. So that'll indicate muscle damage. And then you'll also be able to detect electrolyte imbalances and issues with your kidney function tests due to those kind of kidney clogging effects that we talked about with the myoglobin. In terms of treatment, hydration is key. So you want aggressive intravenous fluids, and again, this is all to prevent that kidney damage and also to treat the shock. So you want to achieve rapid diuresis, which is basically a very high urine output. So the rate of fluid administration, you can tweak it a little bit, but really you want urine output to be around 200 to 300 milliliters per hour in adults. So that's a little bit less than like a can of your choice of beverage.
Actually, that's about the same as a fifth of a kilogram, isn't it?
Depending on density.
Milliliters? Yeah. All right. Well, it's our familiar unit. It's all back to us there. Good.
And then in severe cases, you would need, if there is kidney failure and dysfunction, you could need dialysis. So that's where you get hooked up to that basically external kidney filtering machine.
Yikes.
Yep. All right. Last thing, Gordy, in case you weren't afraid enough, complications. So this is not comprehensive and probably pretty common sense by this point, but kidney failure due to the toxic effects of myoglobin on the kidneys, again, they basically just clog up the kidney tubules and cause all sorts of electrolyte and filtration issues. And then secondarily, you can get these electrolyte imbalances because that's a large part of kidney function, and you can get hyperkalemia, so high levels of potassium in your blood, and that can cause cardiac issues. And then we'll talk about this a little bit more later on, but compartment syndrome. So just a little tease for you there. But basically, you want early medical attention and diagnosis to prevent those complications.
Interesting. No, I'm never going to work out again. So
Smart.
Thank you. You just never know. Rhabdo could be under any weight I'm lifting. Before we keep going, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors today. From the people who brought you Now That's What I Call Music 945, get ready for the world's most intense fitness compilation of today. Now That's What I Call Rhabdomyolysis. Feel the burn, literally, with hits like Break My Muscles But Not My Heart, a ballad for the gym heroes who went one rep too far, or My Pee's Brown and I'm Freaking Out, the anthem of every CrossFitter who's pushed past their limits. Just try to sit still when you turn on Why's My Kidney Itchy, or the classic Cramps in the Morning, Ambulance by Noon, a soulful reminder to pace yourself. And how about Oops, I lifted again and now my muscles are melting, because enough is enough, and many more. Now that's what I call rhabdomyolysis. Call now, do not wait, before the deal and your muscles waste away. Welcome back, everyone. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.com. New episodes Monday morning at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram. In case you didn't notice, Apple was a little weird with our podcast last week. So thanks, everyone who found us on another platform temporarily. And no, we did not take a week off. We're not going to take a week off. Follow us on Instagram, that at goingthroughhealth.podcast, to stay abreast of everything. And hopefully Apple gets it right this week. But make sure you check it out.
All right, Gordy, we are talking about rhabdomyolysis. I think it's time to break down our impressions and share some of our asides as part of our assessment.
Wonderful, Zed. Wonderful. Because, Zed, you can't talk about rhabdo without mentioning that in 1908, a devastating earthquake struck the city of Messina in Sicily, Italy, claiming over 80,000 lives. It is the deadliest earthquake in the history of Europe. And amid the chaos, doctors treating survivors noticed a puzzling and fatal condition in many of the injured. People who had been trapped under the debris for long periods were not only suffering from crush injuries, but also dying of kidney failure shortly after being rescued. Rabadabadoo. The severe muscle damage from being crushed under heavy rubble caused the release of muscle contents like myoglobin into the bloodstream. And this overwhelmed the kidneys, leading to acute kidney failure, though at the time doctors didn't understand the mechanism behind it. Years later, in World War II, it was again identified following the Blitz of London. Doctors observed that soldiers and civilians trapped under rubble for long periods of time experienced severe muscle damage, leading to kidney failure. In 1941, Dr. Eric Bywaters and Dr. Desmond Bayall published a groundbreaking paper detailing their observations of what they call crush syndrome, which sounds awful, right? Which is now understood as rhabdo. And their work came from studying the victims of the bombings during the said Blitz in London, where people trapped under rubble suffered severe muscle damage. Bywaters and Beale discovered that damaged muscles release toxins such as myoglobin into the bloodstream, leading to kidney failure, as we've discussed. And they wrote that the resulting anuria and death in many cases was a result of acute kidney damage, and this was the critical finding that reshaped trauma treatment. The research not only identified the link between muscle breakdown and kidney failure, but also it highlighted the importance of early intervention to prevent fatalities in trauma victims. And said this paper led to the modern treatment protocols for rhabdo that we use today, emphasizing hydration, as you mentioned, and kidney support to flush out harmful substances from the bodies. Yeah, it makes me wonder if the Navy SEALs made any of those lacrosse players lay under rubble for a night or something like that, you know?
Yeah, Navy SEALs are really sort of the myoglobin of lacrosse kidneys, I guess.
That's exactly right. Well put.
Well, that was fascinating, but a real bummer, Gordy.
I know.
Huge, deathly earthquake and the Blitz of London. But hey, we got something good out of it. We figured out what's going on with rhabdo.
That happens a lot. You know, you got to use those bad opportunities and make some good out of them, unfortunately. But
yeah,
now I'm kind of curious. Or please go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say this is gonna be worth it. You're gonna be so glad. You can't make an omelet without crushing some eggs.
Thank you, Zed. I'm so glad I did come back to you for that, and I appreciate that. That is true. But Zed, what are some things that you found interesting or compelling?
Thank you for asking. I really feel heard, even after you should have learned your lesson. No, so I teased this earlier, the big compartment syndrome tease. And no, compartment syndrome, not talking about the brief madness that overcomes you when you're stuck in a small space with strangers. Does that happen to you?
Yeah, I hate that feeling.
Yeah,
my own compartment syndrome. Don't like that.
I was in the elevator the other day with my dog, and he always shakes in the elevator because he's terrified of being in the elevator. And I think someone said something along the lines of, like, oh, poor thing. And my stupid, highly aware, well, not even that aware, but just on edge compartment syndrome brain was like, oh yeah, he's actually 5 or 6 years old and he's really afraid of elevators. It's like, oh,
all right, man. Mahalo.
Me pulling the fire alarm.
My dog's shaking.
Anyway, so compartment syndrome is actually a very serious medical condition, and it occurs when there's increased pressure within your closed body, like muscle compartments. So those are the compartments bound by fascia. So if you've heard of fascial release or really any kind of fascia, that's kind of the external material that's binding these compartments where pressure can build. So this pressure, as it builds, can compromise circulation, tissue function, and that's what leads to muscle and nerve and other tissue damage in that compartment. So it's like rhabdo. It's most commonly associated with trauma, such as fractures, but it can also arise from burns as another really common injury that leads to compartment syndrome, and then things like prolonged limb compression or vigorous exercise. So again, a lot of tie-in with rhabdo here. And so an analogy, if you're familiar with the blueberry boy from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, is it Augustus Gloop that slowly blows up?
No. What you choose the analogies coming from, like, our most, like, sources that you, like, maybe watched like 18 years ago. Yeah. No, all right, there's no blueberry boy. There's a woman, Violet Beauregard, who gets turned into you're Violet, you're turning violet, all right? And then Augustus Gloop, he eats microphones. He's like, oh, I feel hungry. And so I don't know. There's no blueberry boy.
There's not. Is it Violet that gets swells up like a giant blueberry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Augustus Gloop swells up just due to sodium and edema. He just overeats.
All right. So it's blueberry girl. All right.
Yeah.
I got way off
base.
Getting
a freak on you there.
But also Violet Beauregard, as she swells up and blows up, all of her compartment pressures are building, and she would probably have to worry a little bit about compartment syndrome.
Among other things.
And so I was just trying to think of something that her classmates would say to make fun of her, but can't think of anything.
Kids can be mean, Zed. Good point.
All right, so we covered a little bit of the pathophysiology, but basically, again, that fascia surrounding those muscles does not expand very easily. It's not very elastic. So any swelling within that compartment increases pressure, and that elevated pressure impedes the blood flow, and that leads to ischemia. So basically, those tissues not getting any oxygen and then dying. So muscle and nerve tissues can necrose, and that is a problem. Symptoms and diagnosis. There are the 6 Ps. Do you want to guess what any of the Ps are for diagnosing compartment syndrome?
Product placement, PFAS, penis, people, president. Are those them?
Damn.
Dave?
Wow. It needs to change to the 9 Ps or the 10 Ps of compartment syndrome. Yeah,
so add some.
It's pain out of proportion to the injury. So the thing they teach you is if if it looks like the calf or something looks slightly swollen and you press on it and the patient is freaking out, it's excruciating pain, then that's kind of a sign. So pain out of proportion to injury, and then paresthesia, so changes in your sensation in that area, pallor, so paleness. Same P idea. And then paralysis, pulselessness, and poikilothermia. So that's just your body not adjusting well to external temperatures, so not being able to really maintain your own temperature correctly. So the diagnosis is often clinical, but you can actually confirm it by measuring the intracompartmental pressure. So they do the equivalent, well, not the equivalent, but basically use your little tire gauge and measure the pressure of the compartment.
Interesting.
Yeah. So rhabdo connection, there's a lot of overlap, but complications from rhabdo can lead to compartment syndrome. But you could also get rhabdo from compartment syndrome. As you can imagine, those tissues necrose and die, you get the same sort of excursion of the intracellular materials into the blood, and that can then go to the kidneys and of course cause those kidney complications. And the definitive treatment, this is probably what they did to Violet Beauregard as well. It's called a surgical fasciotomy, which actually involves cutting the fascia to relieve the pressure. So literally just cutting that inelastic fascia to let the pressure dissipate a little bit.
And so is that something like, do you have to come back like afterward? Like, is that an instant thing, or do you have to like get it sewn back together, like sutured back together after you're done, or does it kind of heal on its own? Like, I just don't even, like, it sounds like that's just wrecking yourself. I really just don't want to get rhabdo.
No, don't get rhabdo, don't get compartment syndrome. But no, it's one of those things where you have to treat it immediately. It's like time is of the essence. Also, speed is of the essence.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure after the fact that when the pressure dies down a little bit and the tissue restores to kind of its normal, I'm not sure if they have to go then in. I
guess I just wasn't sure if they're doing like the origin of the muscle, or if they're where they could hypothetically re-anchor it. I don't know, but that's interesting. That's owie.
Fascinating. Don't want to put words in your mouth. All right. I got one other interesting thing for you, Gordy, if that is okay.
Please.
All right. Coturnism. So this was a fun one. So coturnism is a rare form of food poisoning that can result in rhabdo, and it occurs after consuming quail, specifically the European migratory quail, Coturnix. Just be like the lazy scientist, like racing with the other scientists to find new bird populations. And like, oh yeah, I actually found this one first. And they're like, oh yeah, what's it called? What's the genus? And I'm like, Coturnix. And they're like, okay, what's the species? Coturnix. Oh, really? Coturnix. That's the name.
They're like, all right, sounds. He had both answers. I think it's right. All right, put it down in the.
It's like the office, the dentist, the dentist named Crentist.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me. Your dentist's name is Crentist. Maybe that's why he became a dentist.
And this is why the Coturnix became a Coturnix. Okay. Again, with the two first names or last names. So yeah, basically quail poisoning, and they think it's secondary. So the quail's actually fine; they don't mind. Well, they probably mind being eaten, but it's actually because they've consumed poisonous compounds for humans. So there's some question whether it's hemlock or hensbane or other poisonous plants that they consume on their migration. But the condition is characterized by symptoms, again, a ton of overlap with rhabdo, such as muscle pain, weakness, nausea, and vomiting. And it typically appears after several hours after the consumption of quail. So there's this story in the Bible that sort of has these characteristics similar to rhabdomyolysis, where the Israelites suffered this plague during their exodus from Egypt in the wilderness of Paran after abundant consumption of quail. So this biblical catastrophe is theorized to have been caused by the intoxication with hemlock herbs that the quails consume during their spring migration.
Yeah, I was reading about that, just trying to learn more. It sounds like God was like, hey, everyone, we got a ton of quails. Like, it's going to be a quail party, boys. Like, everyone dig in, get your quails. And then he's like, oh, whoa, this is gross. Like, you guys are all being gluttons and, like, just really weirdly horny for quails now. Like, you guys really like quail that much? It's like, it's just quail. Yeah. It's just like have fun equating quail with the time you threw up and most of your tribe died. And he was like, boom, that quail is going to poison you.
Time to teach you guys a lesson.
Yeah, it literally says, like, in Numbers 11:33, it says, but while the meat was still between their teeth, the people's teeth, and before it could be consumed, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. It's like, all right.
Classic
Thanks,
Lord.
Thanks, man.
You got us.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's funny you quote that specific line because I saw a bunch of papers that were like, yeah, it looks like rhabdo may be what occurred in the great quail feast of whatever. But then I saw this other paper that was like, well, quote unquote, in our view, it is most likely that the very great plague that afflicted the Israelites in the wilderness of Paran was a foodborne illness that was caused by bacteria growing in fresh or incompletely cooked meats and caused symptoms of acute gastroenteritis. So they're saying because of the rapid onset that it was a different mechanism and that it wasn't rhabdo. So
everyone's like turning and looking at like Chef Ishmael like on like the grill over there, being like, "What? I thought it was 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Like what? My thermometer said it was good. I thought it was cool."
Damn, Chef Ishmael. But yeah, so basically, yeah, maybe some more medical sermons would be a good thing. Don't sin, wash your hands, and be careful when you're having a quail feast, I think are some of the main lessons here. But there are also references in texts by Aristotle and others. Didn't see Hippocrates come up, interestingly, but it was noted that consumption came during certain times of the year, particularly in the Mediterranean region, and that would lead to the severe illness. So again, to briefly get into the toxic source, it's believed to be linked to the quail's diet of seeds from plants such as hemlock or hellebore during the migration, but there's quite a bit of debate as to the exact causal agent. But basically, some of these poisonous plants contain alkaloids that can accumulate in the bird's tissues, even though they're still okay, and that's what leads to the poisoning in humans. And then we talked a little bit about geographically, the pattern seems to be the Mediterranean region, particularly during the quail's autumn migration, which kind of matches up with these patterns in the plant growth and consumption. So yeah, it's you and I just eating lunch in Corsica on a beautiful November day, and you lift that succulent squab to your mouth, and I realize what's happening just in the nick of time, and I dive across the table and slap it out of your teeth, and yeah, that's how I prevent you from getting rhabdo.
What a god complex you have.
just call me.
All right. But Zed, thank you for that. But I have the kicker for you because I could have sworn I heard you say Hippocrates. Did someone say Hippocrates?
It's Hippocrates. Yup, hip to hip hop to hippie to the hip Hippocrates.
It's true, Zed.
Wow.
It's true, Zed. Just for you.
Just adding that to my you-know-what playlist real fast.
Oh, good. But yeah, no, if you say Hippocrates, like in a dark mirror 3 times, a spooky ancient physician will appear. So that must have been what happened.
And he's not covered by your insurance.
No, it's going to be expensive. Inflation has gone up a huge amount since he was around. Hippocrates, the padre of modern medicine, observed and wrote about muscle injuries caused by trauma, including soldiers and athletes. And there's no difference between the two at Tufts University. Between soldiers and athletes who experience intense physical activity or injury, he noted that severe muscle injuries could lead to dark urine and overall weakness, which are hallmark signs of rhabdo. In Aphorisms, one of his famous works, Hippocrates described the appearance of dark or black urine following traumatic injuries or severe illnesses. It was significant, the observation, in that myoglobin, the protein released from damaged muscles, as we know, causes dark urine. So just as proof, here's an excerpt straight from the hippo's mouth himself, Hippocrates. When the urine is black or thick, it indicates a condition that is fatal. It would have been cool if he made that rhyme, right?
Yeah. I think the least he could do.
It's like beer before liquor, never been sicker, but if the urine is black or thick, something bad.
Sick. Boom.
So if it was black and sick, you are very sick. They're like, thank you, Hippocrates. Always a good bar you can drop. And while I have you, Zed, the word rhabdomyolysis, as you may have mentioned a little bit earlier in terms of the rod striated muscles, rhabdos, rod-like, myo, muscle, lysis, breakdown, because the term describes a condition where skeletal muscle breaks down rapidly, releasing myoglobin into the blood. And the term was first used in 1956 by Drummond H. Bowden. That's a cool name, Drummond. Ba-rum-bum-bum-bum.
A little Drummond boy.
But he called it acute recurrent rhabdomyolysis, and then harder to say word in parentheses afterwards. And it was that was the first time it was used, but it was last used by me, rhabdomyolysis. But Dr. Zed, before we wrap up rhabdo, what are the GTH big three bangers?
Rum pum pum pum, rum pum pum pum. That's in my all day. So, first of the big three bangers: prevention, rab, don't get rhabdo. Get it?
Yeah, I got it. That's awesome.
So, again, if you are a Laxbro, do not train like a Navy SEAL, especially when you have been on the golf course country club all day, all summer. So, gradual exercise, avoid sudden, intense physical activity without proper conditioning. And then medication review. So, those are one of the things that I mentioned earlier that can actually trigger rhabdo based on certain reactions. Statins are the famous one, but basically regular monitoring and adjustment of medications that may increase risk. And then we talked about some of the other causes. I mean, obviously, avoid your lightning strikes, avoid your snake bites. But again, the main thing around here that we're trying to avoid is any kind of crush injury or prolonged immobility or that intense physical exercise, especially in hot conditions. And then diet-wise, avoid your Mediterranean quail in the fall. So just a little mnemonic to help remember that by: beware the squab when the autumn winds howl, lest you should fall afoul with muscle aches on a September day and urine of Earl Grey.
Amazing.
and all right, so that's prevention, rhabdo. Second banger, recognition, rhabdo. So when you have it, don't. Being aware of early signs of rhabdo can lead to a quicker intervention and treatment. So again, those common symptoms, that's that muscle pain, the weakness, vomiting, dark or tea-colored urine, and fatigue. So if you're experiencing those symptoms, especially after strenuous exercise or physical trauma, get thee to a doctor post hence. All right?
Hell yeah.
All right. So, and then treatment, we covered a little bit of this earlier, but you just want to think rhabdomyolysis, hydrolysis. So just add water, and specifically isotonic saline. So you want to break it down with water, and you're not really breaking it down, but you're flushing the kidneys. You're flushing all that myoglobin and other stuff out and trying to keep the kidneys running smoothly. So hydration, IV fluids to mitigate those kidney complications. Why you have to go and make those kidney complications. And that preserves the renal function. And then there's that forced diuresis. So just making you pee as much as possible. And when you start that within 6 hours of admission, that's been reported and studied to really minimize the risk of your acute renal failure. So you want to pee a large cup of tea very frequently. And those are our big three bangers.
Thank you, Zed, because I got something for you.
Now that's healthy.
That was healthy, as always. I appreciate it. I just feel like I need to drink more water in general. I'm gonna start that. I appreciate that.
Today's the day.
But Zed, now I want to share a little story with you in a little segment we like to call Astonishing Human Feats.
Oh, wow. Wow. Wow.
Astonishing human feats.
All right, I have an astonishing human feat for you today, Zed. That is really freaking astonishing. Today, I'm talking about the most badass fitness king of the ancient world. This guy would not get rhabdo from a workout with the Tufts lacrosse team. I'm talking about Milo of Croton. It could be Milo of Croton, but I'm just going to say Milo of Croton because it sounds a little harder. All right, Zed, meet Milo. He's your normal guy from Croton. Not. Milo was pulling off feats of strength that the mere thought of alone could turn an entire lacrosse team's pee red. This is the difference between Milo and a god, Zed. Is God made the sea red, Milo will make your pee red.
Our complete Bible ignorance really coming into play here. Did God make the sea red? Or someone part of the Red Sea?
Yeah, but it's through him all things are possible. Born in the 6th century BC in the Greek colony of Croton, he's just walking around. It's like, 600 BC? What does the C stand for?
The C word. Settle down, Australian listeners. Settle down.
So Milo wasn't just an athlete, he was honestly more of a superhero. And this beastly man wasn't just about winning medals, though believe me, Zedward, he had plenty. He also crushed his enemies in battles, casually carried cows, and may have died in the most hardcore way yet described on GTH. And also, before we get going, much of what we know about Milo of Croton comes from later writings by historians like Pausanias, and Pausanias seems a little obsessed. He definitely enjoyed writing about Milo, and I'll read some of his words later, but they're very glowing. And literary sources, also such as the poet Homer, these accounts, written centuries after Milo's time, often blend historical facts with legend because sometimes it's more fun that way, Zed. So while we have some information, it's not always clear where history ends and myth begins. It is the gray area between myth and history. Mystery. And it sounds like I've been binging on quails.
Building a mystery.
Mystery. I got a mystery for you, Zed. All right, so let's start with his Olympic dominance. We're fans of the Olympics here at GTH. Milo was a 6-time Olympic wrestling champion with his first victory at the 60th Olympiad in 540 BC when he was just a boy. I was like, kind referee, would you enlighten me, my young Greek ears? What does the C stand for in BC? The anticipation's killing me. He then went on to win 5 consecutive titles after that. The man was unstoppable.
Wait, so he won basically 5 consecutive titles as a boy, or so say he's his first one's at 10 and then he's 15 and already, wow.
Yeah, he just, I don't know how
clowning.
many Olympics they had, but he was just stacking up the medals, some people. So he was described as an absolute physical powerhouse, a man of towering height and broad shoulders with muscles so well developed that they looked almost sculpted. And honestly, I think, Zed, this may be because there are a lot of sculptures of him out there. But his arms were described as thick and strong and almost made out of marble, like a statue. No, incredibly still, never moved. Sir, you're looking at a statue. That is a statue. That's a statue. No, but his legs were massive and sturdy, and he not only exuded raw strength, but also moved with the confidence and the control of a champion wrestler. Said, you could call yourself Mr. Nutrition.
I don't.
But you're, well, Mr. Nutrition, let me share with you Milo's daily diet. 20 pounds of meat, 20 pounds of bread, 10 liters of wine. And they don't really mention that he was fucking hammered all the time. But so that's his daily meal. 20 pounds of meat, 20 pounds of bread, 10 liters of wine. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty good. Wow. But thanks for putting it in pounds and not in fifths of kilograms.
I went back and forth with like the actual, it just makes sense.
Conversions.
20 pounds. It didn't say like 20 of it. It's just more the equivalent of 20 pounds. Today.
Gotcha.
I did my work. All right. But he didn't just compete in the Olympics either. He racked up wins at the Python, Isthmian, and Nemean games. And those are basically, I was looking those up. It's actually pretty sweet. So I feel like the opening ceremonies would be super sick, and you'd like this. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like the Tri-Wizard tournament kind of thing, or I don't know, some weird contest where it's like the Python games are in honor of Apollo, and they're held like every 2 years, and you celebrate Apollo's victory over the Python, which is like a serpent or dragon. So I imagine you have like real crazy, ceremony for that. And then the other one near Corinth is like in honor of Poseidon, and so it's like a water games, and it has all this honor for the Poseidon, the water god. And then the Nemean games were in honor of Zeus, and they were like every 2 years, honoring him slaying a lion. So it has like a ton of like cool themes and stuff that would be actually just really awesome, I feel like.
Damn. Yeah, they should make more Olympic themes, because I feel like all the modern day is just, I don't know, do they even have themes?
I don't know. I feel like they're just like weird amorphous like mascots always. Just like blocks or blobs, like puzzle pieces of mascots. So yeah, so he competed at all those, the grand slam of ancient athletic competitions. And by his last Olympic match, Milo was over 40 years old, which is very old. And back then too, you got to think that could be like fighting a 110-year-old or something. I don't know. But he still went toe to toe with men half his age, which is absolutely nothing compared to these other feats that he's done. So he wasn't just a wrestler, Zed. He was a warrior too. In 511 BC, when Croton went to war with the neighboring city of Sybaris, Milo led the Crotonian army. And because this guy never did anything halfway, he showed up to battle dressed like Hercules. That's right, baby. Milo fought with a lion skin draped over his shoulders, wielding a giant club, all while wearing his Olympic wreaths. Like if we just like put Simone Biles in charge and we're like, take these Navy SEALs and go at it. And just to add to the mystery, Milo's army defeated Siberius's 300,000 soldiers with only 100,000 Crotonians. It is said that Milo sent an entire wing of the enemy army flying with one of his physical strength moves of just his arm, just like throwing a whole group of Siberians everywhere. Just
I really like the flair for the dramatic and just really getting into character. Yeah, he's a showman.
He's got a big ego, and you'll see that'll be his undoing, Zed.
And the Siberians, of course, that's where the Sbarro chain comes from, I believe.
Right, they're throwing pizzas at him. That's right. So yeah, Milo was basically Hercules in human form, but for me, it's the feats of strength that really cemented him as the OG strongman. Pausanias, the guy I mentioned before, the ancient travel writer, he's a big fan of Milo. He tells us about him. He says, here's one feat. Milo would extend his arm, fingers outstretched, and challenge people to bend his little finger. And no one ever could. And so, can you imagine that? Just
trying to pull his... Hey, I'd be a little more worried about pulling his finger after that 20 pounds of meat and bread and wine.
That's actually a very good point. That's a good point.
Hey, pull my finger.
Oh, God. We don't trust you,
Go away,
Milo. No. Yeah, because no one could even bend his finger. Weird challenge, but it shows how ridiculously strong even his smallest muscles were, Zed. Another one of his favorites was he would stand on this greased iron disc and dare anyone to push him off, and nobody ever could. I was just like, we're busy, man.
Yeah, bro, we're fighting over here, and I got the crops. Oh, sorry, Mom. Milo wants me to come push him on his disc again.
Yeah, get off that thing. Get off that. I have to clean that again. But Milo's most famous feat.
No, go ahead. No, you're getting my discs all greasy.
But Milo's most famous feat is straight out of an agrarian Jim Bro fantasy. Every day, Milo would carry a newborn calf on his shoulders. As the calf grew, Milo continued to carry it until by the time of the next Olympics, he was walking around with a full-grown bull on his back. And just to put a cherry on top of this story, it is said at one point, Milo carried the bull the length of the Olympic Stadium, slaughtered it, roasted it, and ate the entire thing. Lots of protein, huge power move. I would love, Zed, to get this guy at the NFL Combine, you know?
Yeah.
We find out he has character issues and he falls to the third round after he like decapitates a receiver in a passing drill.
Oh, such a steal in the third round.
Yeah, such a steal. Yeah, his hands are so greasy though.
Actually, when you talked about the calf thing, that actually rings a bell. So that's Milo, because yeah, I vaguely remember some guy carrying the calf till it was full bull. And
exactly.
I've always been
There's
like,
a lot of
I'd love to
of
try that method. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I did it with my cat when he was a kitten. And for the first year, and when he got up to 14 pounds or something like that, I was like, that's not even heavy anymore. And it's easy for me now. So it's kind of cool. I'm not going to eat him or roast him in front of the stadium. So he had another little feat. It was this little fruit trick. Milo would hold a pomegranate in one hand and challenge others to take it from him. Despite gripping it with incredible force, the fruit was never damaged. That's not just strength, Zed. That is strength with finesse. It is like challenging someone to arm wrestle you and then balancing a glass of pomegranate juice on your arm at the same time.
The NFL general manager's like, yeah, he's got good hands, like incredible strength.
But how's he do with a pomegranate in his hands? It's like, I'm glad you asked. Good. So Milo even liked to show off. This one's freaking nuts, Zed. By breaking cords with his vein. He like tie a rope around his forehead and then like hold his breath and make his veins on his head bulge out so much that the cord snapped. And he'd snap it like that. And so he would literally like flex his way through rope. So that is some vascular strength right there, Sid.
Yeah, can someone give me the scissors? No, Milo's coming.
So you're probably thinking Milo ends up having a stroke trying to destroy something with his veins. No, even more badass than that, Zed. Like all good legends, Milo's story ends in tragedy. According to Pausanias and other ancient sources, Milo's final feat of strength became his undoing. One day, while walking through the countryside, he came across a villager trying to split a tree trunk with wedges. Milo, unable to mind his own fucking business, decided to have a go at it with his bare hands. He's like, "Get out of the way, villager. Do you not know who I am? I'm Milo. I break shit with my forehead." And he thrust his big, greasy pomegranate fingers into the crack where the wedges had been, and he pulled, and he's like, I got this, stand back. And as he's pulling, the wedges fell out. He's like, no! And it trapped his hands inside the tree. Okay, lastima! And he's stuck, and he's holding on. And this is stuck in a loam. And he's like, I don't know where the villager went, actually. That's a really good question. Why did the villager abandon him?
Yeah, I was going to say, the villager's just like, well, see you later, I guess.
He's like, all right, I got him, guys. You don't have to be worrying about him anymore. But stuck and alone, he couldn't free himself. So legend says that wolves, or maybe a lion, showed up, and Milo met his end in the jaws of the wild. The wolves are just like, hey, look what we got here, boys. Someone order Greek?
Greek hero, more like Greek Euro. Like the sandwich.
Very much. He went from hero to Euro.
I'm not done. These are the wolves. I'll have a Greek salad with crotons.
Crotons, please. I know. He's just thrashing there, just unable to stop the wolves from just shit talking him. They're just like absolutely riffing on him. And he's like, and I just like hope that he like somehow at least like nicked one of the lions like with one of his like patented vein poppers. You know, like if he got to get his like forehead close enough to the wolves that where he could like hold his breath for a second, just pop him right in the head with that forehead vein, or you know.
I have something to tell you. Come closer.
No, closer.
Hold my forehead very tight.
Tighter. I like that. Now I don't know about you, but if you were going to go out, I know that you're never going to die, Zed, but being eaten by wolves because you're stuck in a tree you tried to rip apart sounds like the ultimate warrior's death, and it certainly sounds honorable to me. Also, a potential would you rather question, or would it kill me? Maybe even a giant terrarium question. We'll see. But Zed, due to how hard this mofo went, both in life and death, his story has been told for centuries. When he was alive, they were like, hey, Milo, look, man, you're awesome. We want to honor you with a statue at this place called Atlas. It's a sacred enclosure at Olympia where statues of the gods and Olympic champions are displayed. And he's like, all right, cool. According to ancient sources, Milo said, okay, and then carried his own statue just to further symbolize his strength and glory. And in the Renaissance, as you mentioned before, sculptors loved to depict Milo both carrying the calf and the bull and in his tragic demise with his bulging muscles the moment he was trapped by the tree, which is really kind of crazy if you think about that ultimately a tree killed this guy.
It's like, for Christ's sake, what does the C stand for?
Before the tree eats me, tell me. So Milo of Croton wasn't just a wrestler or a warrior or a show-off, Zed. He was a friend, husband, and lover. No, he was a symbol of what the human body could achieve through dedication, strength, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of unreliable history. And whether it was dominating the Olympics, leading an army, or casually lifting bulls, Milo's feats of fortitude inspire works of art and also workouts of lacrosse teams in New England and beyond.
Milo, you absolute legend.
For sure. Zed, but you hear that music. If you have any sense of memory whatsoever, you probably know what that music means. It is time for our fast fire questions.
Gordy and Zed's fast fire questions.
That's right, Zed. And as always, we like to start off with our first question, which is, would you rather?
Would you rather?
Zed, would you rather spend... This is a kind of a crazy one. It's going to take some time, all right? I really think about this. Would you rather spend 24 hours on a treadmill, moving 2 miles per hour? So it's like a typical walking speed, let's say, all right? Maybe even a slow walking speed for you. If you are able to do 24 hours at 2 miles per hour on that treadmill, you will get $1 million. But if you try it and you fail, you have to give up $100,000 or have your wages garnished. Like your next 50 years of podcasting money.
Not my podcast wages.
To it. Yeah. So what would you rather do that or would you rather not?
Let's see. And yeah, I think it's about 48 miles total.
Yeah, that's 2 miles an hour for 24 hours. Just 24 times 2 is roughly 48.
So it's close to almost 2 marathons at a walking pace. And I'm assuming I can like drink and eat and stuff.
Yeah, but you have to stay on the treadmill.
Yeah,
you can poop and pee. You can do whatever you want.
Damn.
You can sleep if you can somehow move 2 miles per hour.
Roll.
Yeah, just rolling. Would you take it right now if someone offered you that?
Yeah, I'm not thinking through it too much. I think I would want to try it because I don't know, but I don't even like hiking. I don't like being on the treadmill.
It's a long time, but it's like it's a one-off. And like if you could, it would be freaking nice if you could see the $1 million. It'd probably be helpful too.
Yeah, I was just hanging right in front of me on the treadmill.
But I think I would hate to get injured.
Yeah, or have to owe the 100,000 of our podcast wages.
Because if I got injured, then I would.
I think I would go for it because just I don't know what's the worst case situation. I go even further into debt than I already am. Big deal.
It's like who cares? I was born in the darkness.
Best case scenario, I have $1 million and Rhabdo, and now I know how to treat Rhabdo, so it's no problem.
Easy, man. I agree. I think we go for it.
Yeah,
and hopefully that could be one of our future video episodes.
Treadmill holding hands.
This is so hard.
Yeah, maybe we can get someone to sponsor this.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, we can do it for charity. I don't know. We'll think about it, but I like the idea. Someone give us $1 million for charity. That would be great. But Zed, it is time for our next question, which is WWYRSTWIAGT.
Which would you rather spend time with in a giant terrarium?
Which would you rather spend time with in a giant terrarium? All right, this one's a bit topical. Let's say Milo of Croton. Are you familiar with the guy?
Milo, Croton. Yes,
you know.
A bell. Wrestler, warrior, lover, friend.
That's exactly right. Or, wait a sec.
It's Hippocrates. Yup, hip to hip hop to hippie to the hip Hippocrates.
Oh man, that's Hippocrates music. Ew, we have Hippocrates. It is Milo of Croton or Hippocrates. You know, said they're not necessarily going to fight you. You know, I think Milo actually might just naturally fight you for some reason. But who would you rather spend time with? And there's no goal. I don't have any goal for this terrarium. There's not like you're going to get attacked. It's just like, who would you rather spend time with in a giant terrarium? Milo of Croton or Hippocrates? And no language barrier issues. You have magical translation device.
I agree. I feel like Milo's going to get bored pretty quick, and I don't know if I can count on there being a tree to like trap him. Milo. This tree won't open.
Help! I'm stuck, stepbrother.
I don't know. Now that I'm kind of thinking of it, I could give him a bunch of challenges, and maybe I'd get some pointers. Maybe he could kind of coach me. He puts me through a Navy SEAL workout, a Croton workout. That's horrible Rhabdo. But Hippocrates, like man, that groovy, funky guy. I bet the conversation will be great. There's so many things I could learn. You've truly put me in a quandary. I think I'm gonna go Milo. I just think there's more entropy there, and worst case scenario, he crushes me. And best case scenario, I have a friend for life who I can always depend on and be like,
you want him on your side.
Yeah, you definitely want him on your side.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a great answer, Zed.
Who would you choose?
I would do the opposite. I think Milo's a bit too much of a wild card.
Yeah, wild card.
If you put me in there with Hippocrates, I think I could probably break his neck within the first 5 minutes. It's like for some reason I just attack him.
He's like, hey.
And then I'm like done. I'm like, oh crap, what was the assignment here? Like, I just killed the godfather of modern medicine. Or ancient medicine or whatever he does.
And now I don't know what to do and my urine's black. What was I supposed to do?
Oh no. I freaked. All right, Zed. What is time for the final question? The one that is not a question. It is Shock the Doc.
Shock the Doc.
Here's one for you, smart guy. Did you know the human body literally glows glows, not grows. Researchers have found that we emit a faint glow, but it's 1,000 times weaker than what our eyes can detect. Maybe we should stop calling it a healthy glow and start calling it a tragically unremarkable luminescence. Am I right?
You're so right.
A study in 2009 published in PLOS One, a scientific journal about threesomes. No, PLOS One is the PLOSONE. It is the Public Library of Science journal. And the study confirmed that the human body emits a very faint light known as ultra-weak photon emission. The study used highly sensitive cameras, don't look at me, I'm ugly, to capture this glow, showing that different parts of the body emit varying levels of light throughout the day. Interestingly, the glow is most pronounced on the face, particularly in the cheeks, and it follows a diurnal rhythm peaking in the late afternoon. And the glow is caused by biochemical reactions involving free radicals produced during the metabolic process. And when these free radicals interact with lipids and proteins, they create tiny amounts of light. And while it's not visible to the naked eye, the fact that we all emit light, I think, is a fascinating discovery.
So it is kind of like a light bulb kind of going off, but not from a good idea, but from a protein free radical interaction.
Exactly. It's the magic of science that we all appreciate so much.
Wow, that's kind of cool. I wonder if you can put on the equivalent. What's like a Navy SEAL goggles?
Oh yeah, like infrareds or something.
Infrared, and see that glow.
I wonder. I was thinking if it's infrared, it'd be kind of like a heat-related thing. So I wonder if, like, just me being a warmer person would be like, I'm glowing a lot more. Like my metabolism is churning right now.
Just easier to pick up on the scope and nail from a mile away.
Exactly. Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to Going Through Health with Gordy and Zed. Listen each week on Apple Podcasts if they work with us a little bit. Spotify and YouTube, new episodes available early Monday morning. Follow us, rate, and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And please give us 5 stars, wherever the most is. We're at goingthroughhealth.podcast on Instagram. I love those posts. Follow those so you know that we're still coming out with episodes, even if Apple is letting us down, the rotten apple. Any questions, email us at gordyandz@gmail.com and we will answer them, or at least try. Thank you so much today, Zeddy.
Thank you, Gordy. I'll see you in Croton.
I'll see you there, Milo.
Hey, this is Zed. This podcast is intended solely for general informational purposes and does not represent the provision of medical advice or the practice of any professional healthcare services. No clinician-patient relationship is formed. Nice try. And the use of the information provided or materials linked is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not meant to replace professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should seek medical advice for any health issues they may have and should consult their healthcare providers for any such concerns.